Welcome into another episode of Kollectiv Knowledge. I'm your host, Shane. You can find me on Twitter at FFShaneB. And joining me tonight is the Fantasy EO and host of the FF Boardroom podcast, fantasy football analyst and addict for Redraft, Dynasty, prop bets, and a board member and writer for, you guessed it, the Fantasy Football Collective, is your fantasy football tycoon. Tycoon, how are you doing tonight, man?
I am fantastic, Shane, and thank you for such a nice intro, to be honest.
Thank you.
That was pleasurable. I don't get a lot of those, so I'll take it.
Well, if we're being honest, I mainly just copied it off of your bio.
It's all right. I build myself up, so it sounds good.
Yeah, absolutely. You're good at that. So, before we jump into the questions, we've got to do a little bill paying and an ad read. So we'll start off with our ad read for Thrive Fantasy. So come prop up on Thrive Fantasy this football season. And since football season is wrapping up, they have other sports too. I'm not any good at those, but Tycoon can talk about that later. Thrive Fantasy is a daily fantasy sports and esports app for player props. You choose 10 out of the 20 available player props to build your lineup, and each prop is assigned a fantasy value based on the likelihood of the over or the under hitting, and how likely it is to hit. So hit the most props, rack up the most points to win a share of the prize pool. I was on a heater. I am very much on a cold streak right now to where the only ones I'm winning right now are the Jaguars free roll that they roll out every week. So you got a couple opportunities for that, but other than that, it's still really easy to win money, I think. So come prop up this season, join me, use code FFShaneB when signing up, and they will give you a deposit match. And you can do that on the App Store, the Play Store, or www.thrivefantasy.com. Sign up and prop up today. All right, Tycoon, it is time. Are you ready?
To get it.
All right, cool. So let me throw your Twitter handle up there real quick.
But I will say, as far as the cold streak you're on, you mentioned, I mean, this has been, for my money, the weirdest fantasy and NFL season of all time. The last few weeks in particular have been...
Yeah, it's
you can't expect what's happened. So if you're winning your bets, you're making some strange bets over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, well, and I feel like a couple of times I've gone against my gut to pick something, and then
so fading yourself because you've been told.
Yeah. And then that doesn't even work out.
No.
So, okay. So Eric and I were debating on Twitter a little bit before the show started. So he actually posed a question. I'm going to throw that up real quick. What free agent wide receiver would you like Cleveland to bring in to serve as the wide receiver one in that offense? I feel like Michael Gallup might work.
That was going to be my answer, except for the ACL. I mean, I guess it could still happen, but man.
Yeah. The other one, I think, and I don't know if I want this one just because I think he's a bit of a head case, but Juju Smith-Schuster would be another good one, I think. But to me, and that's so basically what Eric and I were talking about is how people have been hating on Baker lately. And Eric Romoff is in the chat, and he says Allen Robinson. I don't hate that either. I think someone who is going to be extremely good at separation, though, is what Baker needs. And I comped it similar to Stephon Diggs going to the Bills for Josh Allen. That was my point, was like Baker was hurt this year, and he hasn't had a true wide receiver one. So bring in a true wide receiver one, and if he flops like he did this year or in 2019, then he's out, or he's got to be relegated to backup. That's what I think. And I'm the biggest Baker Mayfield fan out there. So me saying that's got to mean a lot.
No, it does.
Ooh. I like that one a lot. I like that one a lot.
Sounds like he may be available, and if so, yes, I do like that.
I like that one a lot, Eric Romoff.
Good call, Eric.
Sneak peek. Eric will actually be on tomorrow for Kollectiv Knowledge for a very special episode. And Gary is agreeing with us.
Love
it. So you're the bonus episode. Eric is the special episode.
Bonus special, either one works.
So, but yeah, that's my thoughts. Eric Johnson, and I agree with Eric Romoff. Ridley would be perfect. Do you have any other thoughts, Tycoon, before we jump into the
Oh,
actual questions?
I was going to say Gallup, and I think Ridley is actually the perfect one. Robinson, not a bad call either. I mean, who else is going to be out there? I mean, potentially Godwin, but no, I don't want that. Um, I really like the idea of going after Ridley. I think that would be the move if they can pull that off.
Only other one, and I don't know if it would happen, it would take Rodgers leaving Green Bay, would be Devontae.
I have other things I'd like to see Devontae do if that happens. So I
What are
don't
those?
want it. I want to see Devontae on the Las Vegas Raiders if he makes an exit from Green Bay. I want to see him reunite with Derek Carr. I want to see him bring that extra explosive element that the Vegas offense needs. It's that star power that Vegas needs. I mean, to me, it's a perfect fit.
Yep. And then Eric came back with Godwin too. So yeah, I think Godwin would fit the role nicely. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I like Godwin, but you seem to
Love
have your
Godwin.
doubts.
Godwin's tremendous. I want him in a better situation. That's all. Like
it would be a great situation. He'd be the number one target.
I mean, sure, but he'd be the number one
Where
target.
now he's competing before AB went psycho. He's competing to be the 1A, 1B, or 1C.
But it's not hurting him because he's playing with a fantastic quarterback.
Yeah. Ouch. All right, we're going to move on to the question before I get my feelings hurt. All right. When was your first fantasy football, sir?
So my first foray into organized fantasy football into a league was in 2006 with a group of just my close friends from home. It was that first, real home league with just the boys.
Nice. And is that league still going?
That league has been long dead, disbanded many years ago, as some of us grew up, and some of the younger ones that were in the group faded out of their fantasy love. Yeah, it pretty quickly died. I think we only got 3 or 4 years out of that one.
I gotcha. So what is your longest standing league right now then?
The longest one I actually have right now is still about to go into year 5, which would be our Fantasy Island.
Fantasy Island, I was going to say.
Correct. Yeah, that seems to be about the expiration date for most leagues I've been in. So Fantasy Island will likely end up being my longest running league here in another year. I don't think I've ever had a league go past 5 years.
Yeah, I've heard the average age of a Dynasty league, I think, is 3 years.
Well, not even just in general, various different like work or home leagues or friendly family leagues, all that stuff. At some point, they all seem to die around that 4 or 5 year mark.
Yeah. Okay, so what are the settings for the very first league that you were in? And then if you'll share the settings for Fantasy Island as well.
Absolutely. So the very first league I was in was as standard gets. You had your single QB, 2 running backs, 3 receivers, a tight end, a defense, a kicker, no PPR, no bonuses. So your point ones for your yardage, your 6-point touchdowns, 4 points for quarterback passing touchdowns. Very, vanilla.
Yeah.
And we're not all that different, actually, when it comes to Fantasy Island. We do have half PPR, which, especially at the origination of the league, was something we preferred. Weren't really on the full PPR train yet. Obviously, it was already popular, but I think there was still a small element of a purist vibe at the time, so I didn't just want to give out all the free points for reception. So, I mean, we've grown from there, but this league's long-standing enough, it kind of needs to stay because rosters have been built around that setting, and the extra half PPR makes a significant difference, so we can't really make that bump. Yeah. But that's what other leagues are for. So we're half PPR. Instead of 3 receivers, it's only 2, but we do have 2 flexes, and yes, still defense and still kicker. 12 teams. It's beautiful.
I'll fight you on that kicker every day. But that's not a topic for this show. So Gary is just showing us all up with his longest Dynasty league being at year 16. Gary, that's incredible.
Impressive. That really is. What an awesome group then. If you have,
absolutely.
Even if it's 10 teams, you have 9 or 11 other people that you've been able to stick this through with for 16 years.
Yeah. No,
Props to
I'll
you and your
have to
league.
ask G-Man J because I joined his home league this past year, and I'll have to ask him how long that league has been um, going because I think it's been going for a little bit. So, all right, Tycoon, you and I are both degenerates,
That we are.
and I don't know about you, but I know a lot of people are cutting back on leagues this year because they were in too many. I'm probably cutting back on a few. We'll still join some, but we'll be cutting back on a few. And so here's my question: if you can only join one more league, and it's got to be your favorite settings to join that league, what are your favorite settings?
Oh man, people are gonna think I'm boring, but if I can only join one more league, it would be a Dynasty league. Dynasty is really where my fantasy heart lies. So it'd
Yeah,
be a Dynasty single QB league, not Superflex. I'm okay with Superflex, but it is not my preference. I like 2 running backs. I like 3 forced receivers, a tight end, of course, and then I like 2 or even 3 flexes depending on the competition level of the league. If it's not as strong of
yeah,
a league, I'm not necessarily trying to flex on them in a sense by throwing in that trip flex.
yeah.
So yeah, if it's a little more experienced, I like 3 flexes. I like defense still, yes, team defense, and kickers. That is correct. I still like playing with kickers. Shout out Linda. Let's go. Kickers for
Shout
life.
out Linda. She was guest number 3, if I remember right, of
It was a good
Kollectiv
episode.
Knowledge. So yeah. All right. So here's my question to you, and it's not on the show sheet. You like team defense. Do you play any IDP leagues?
I have in the past that I actually was doing tremendous in the one IDP Dynasty League I was in, and then it disbanded. I won the
Okay.
championship, and then everybody quit. So I'm currently not, but I'm open to it. It's still not my preference, just because the amount of fantasy I play, doing content, things like that, the extra level of research is just a little more. So it's not out of lack of enjoyment; it's more of a time constraint for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so the reason I asked that is because I like IDP. Team defense is all right, but I really like IDP. Um, I don't know, it's a little more fun to me with the IDP aspect of it because I don't know, you gotta pick the right players.
Oh, you do.
And it requires a little more study. So I agree with
What
you
I
right
learned in
there.
IDP is it's not even always necessarily good players. A lot of times it's just positional. You
Yeah.
got some bum in there, but he's a linebacker and racking up 7, 8 tackles. I mean,
Yep.
that's going to outproduce, an Aaron Donald three,
Yep.
4 times a season, which is wild to think about.
Totally. All right. Next question for you is when did you start making content for fantasy football?
So, as a matter of fact, just this previous off season, I
Nice.
started
Yep.
in
I
June
remember
of
that.
2021.
Yep. The good old Fox. Um, finally talked you in, but got some more IDP comments in here. First year IDP, and I loved it. Much more study work involved.
Same.
And I mean, I just crushed that rhyme. Needs to be a jingle for an IDP podcast. We can talk about it,
Yeah.
Eric.
But he's right. It is more fun, but it's also a lot more work and study. That's really the
Yeah,
only issue.
totally. So, okay. So, what made you start?
Just I've always viewed myself as a pretty decent fantasy football player. I mean, just based on
You're a
results,
savant.
winning
Don't sell
leagues. I
yourself
don't
short.
know about a savant. Not after. I don't think any of us that do this feel like that after this year. Uh, but man, no. But I feel like I've performed very well. I have solid strategies. I have good opinions on most players, and the results in my leagues have kind of shown that to be true over about 15 years playing fantasy. So I figured it's about time to start trying to share that knowledge, help others win. Being friends with you, being friends with Fox, it kind of gave me a little bit of an avenue to get in and at least you know put out the content instead of just shouting into a
Yeah.
void on Twitter or something. So it's having the combination of opportunity, desire all at once just kind of worked out.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, and the reason I made the comment that you were savant is when I joined Fantasy Island, you weren't making content, but you and I had probably some of my favorite discussions for trade negotiations. And I could tell that you put the work in and that you were smart and you knew what you were talking about. So when Fox did say, hey, Tycoon's going to join us with the collective and start making content, I was like, yes, finally, because I knew how good you are and how good you could be. So I'm happy that you're here.
Oh, well, appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, it's something I've had a desire to do probably even the season before, but just couldn't get myself organized or a way to, yeah, be somewhere to put it out, sort of like starting a blog or something. So tried
Yeah,
to, was
totally.
a little more meticulous with it. And yeah, I mean, with the collective forming, provided the perfect opportunity and timing to jump in. I'm glad you
Absolutely.
guys had me.
Yeah, we're glad to have you too. So what was your very first piece of content?
The very first piece of content was an article I wrote entitled Judge Judy, in which I implored everybody
So good.
starting last June to buy Jerry Judy. By the way, buy Jerry Judy still today, right now. Go do
Yep.
it. Dynasty
I agree.
offseason has started. So um, before Denver upgrades their quarterback, make sure you get that done. And then the fantasy boardroom was born just a couple weeks later.
Yep. No, I loved that article. It was great. I did try and go buy Judy after that. I wasn't successful, but I tried. And but it was a great article, and it is still on the collective website. So if you haven't read it, go check it out because it still rings true today.
Most of it holds
Um,
true. The only thing I got wrong in there really was I expected Drew Lock to be playing most of the season, not Teddy Bridgewater. But other than that,
you
very solid.
you and me both, man. But I think that honestly chalks it up to one of the ways this season was weird.
Weird. Well,
So
and with the limited amount of time Lock has gotten in there, I guess I can kind of see now why Vic went Teddy's way. He has
yeah,
not improved in any way, shape, or form from previously, like I
no,
thought he might.
no, I agree there. All right. What is your favorite thing about the fantasy community?
I would say, I mean, not to make it so literal, but the community that I have found with certain individuals and certain groups within the overall fantasy community. I mean, I think like any given group, there's good, there's bad. I mean, I'm not going to try and sugarcoat it, fluff up like fantasy is just all unicorns and rainbows and all that. You know, there's stupidity, there's drama, there's all that stuff. But on the
Yeah,
other side of the pillow, there's absolutely a lot of just really tremendous people. I mean, good people, friendly people, helpful people, supportive people, smart people,
yeah,
and people that you, I mean, I've formed a lot of friendships that I otherwise never would have had I not jumped into this and
yeah,
started trying to, I don't want to say network, but I mean just relationships have been built through various things. There was the
yeah,
Scott Fishbowl, our
100%.
pick chat for the seventh picks, and then our division chat. So Scott Fishbowl was a great connector, but there's just
Yep,
a few various, I don't want to say cliques because that's kind of wrong, but like smaller groups within where you kind of more intimate settings where you
it's
get a chance
it's kind of
to,
accurate.
well, it is in certain, yeah, that it is somewhat true, but that's not what I'm trying to
Yeah,
communicate here. Just but more intimate settings to get to know each other a little bit better, work a little bit closer, whether you're guesting on their pods or what have you. So
yeah,
there has
totally,
been a really good number of people that I formed some great relationships with, built nice community with, and
totally.
that's definitely my favorite. The friendships. There we go.
Yeah, no, totally agree with that. And that's a similar answer that pretty much everyone's given is the actual community and how we support each other and whatnot. So I
Those
love it.
that do are, I mean, it's truly, those that are great are the best.
Yeah, totally. All right. So enough about fantasy for now. Tell us a little bit about yourself outside of fantasy football. What what's your day job? Where you're from? Anything else that you want us to know?
I am a Bay Area, California Bay
Yep.
Area native. Grew up in San Jose, and I'm really just a big sports nut. I love, obviously, fantasy and football, but I'm a fan of all of my Bay Area teams. So 49ers, the San Francisco Giants, the Golden State Warriors, the San Jose Sharks, if you couldn't tell.
Nice.
I'm a commercial printing and marketing communication salesman, so that's just a thrill a minute. I mean, it is actually a relatively interesting job day to day, but people think I work for Dunder Mifflin when I tell them I sell printing. Like, oh, so like, I can't tell you the amount of times we've gotten that. So when I'm not working or trying to create content, I'm generally just trying to consume sports in some other way while I'm hanging out with my wife and my dog. My wife is a very big horror and Halloween person, so we
Oh,
go to
very
a lot
nice.
of events that are centered around that.
Oh, cool.
And when we're hanging out, it's a lot of if she's able to get me off sports, or I'm starting to feel guilty at least, or even just forced, because obviously I don't always control that remote. I'm
Yeah.
usually watching some great comedy shows. Big fans of It's Always Sunny, Ted Lasso, The League, The Office, Schitt's Creek. Great shit.
Yep.
And Ted Lasso is quickly ascending to be one of the greatest television shows of all time.
Oh, yeah. 100% agree with that.
Second season was just as good as the first.
Yes. I'm not actually sure if I finished the second season, which is really bad. I need to go make sure that I actually
No
did
need to
finish
rush it. I mean, who knows when third's coming out, so savor it.
Yeah. So, all right. What are your hobbies? And you kind of answered this in the last episode or last question, but that's okay. Hobbies outside of fantasy football.
So, prop betting has really become a big hobby of mine over the course of this last season. As with the Fantasy Kollectiv, we do have a partnership with Prize Picks as well, so that kind of turned me on to that. And excuse me, and I've always been somewhat of a better gambler, but more traditionally on just typical lines, your standard lines, picking sides or totals, things like that, rather than player props. But with us being so involved in fantasy and the individual player element, it seemed like a natural fit, and I have really dove headfirst into that. That's been a lot of fun. Again, hanging out with the wife and dogs, like being outdoors, and we're not going to a horror convention or enjoying sports. Nice. So got some nice parks and trails around where we live, so it's nice to just get some fresh air there. Still like the occasional video game, and I absolutely don't get to do it enough, but I absolutely love just going out to dinner. I love going to dinner. I don't know what it is. Yeah. It's just a fantastic way to spend a couple hours on a Saturday night. Just enjoy a good meal that you don't have to cook and clean up after.
And clean. Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Just, forget everything for a couple hours.
Yeah. What kind of dogs do you have?
Have a Chihuahua Terrier mix, little 10, 11 pound, wonderful, horrible dog. And then we also have our 25 pound Terrier Pinscher mix, and he is just a sweetheart.
You mean like this? Say hello to Nugget, everyone.
Hey, Nugget.
Is it
Nugget is adorable.
Chihuahua, we think rat terrier mix.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, about the same size as yours.
Got that face.
Yep. Hey, buddy. All right, you can get down.
Ours definitely has a little too many Chihuahua traits, but overall, he is
we got lucky with Nugget. He does not have like the yappy kind of bite at your ankles Chihuahua tendencies, which is extremely nice. So cool. All right, we got a question from the chat. I'm gonna be honest. I haven't seen Brooklyn Nine-Nine, so I'm gonna throw this one up to you, Tycoon. Where do you rank Brooklyn Nine-Nine?
We started it at one point, watched the first few episodes, but it's just one that never broke in. So I don't know enough about Brooklyn Nine-Nine to rank it.
Gotcha. So Eric is probably going to be disappointed with us, but that's okay. All right, you ready to hop into some
Andy
rapid
Samberg
fire?
is tremendous, though, so I'm sure it's a very good show.
Yes, I can second that. All right, you ready for some rapid fire? Let's go. All right, favorite NFL team?
49ers.
Favorite sport that's not football?
Hockey, even including football.
Ooh. Favorite food?
Quality, like not Pizza Hut or whatever, like quality pizza. Just a fine pizza.
You will have to, if you ever come to Greenville, you'll have to go to Sidewall with me. It's my favorite place.
I've been to Greenville just before you moved there.
Ah. All right. Favorite favorite sports movie. Sorry.
It is a tough call, but if I can only pick just one, it would be Miracle.
Ah, that's 2 in a row. That is 2 in a row. Yeti Express, who was on Tuesday, said Miracle as well.
It's a great movie.
Yeah. All right. Favorite non-sports movie.
Okay, I cheated Shane because I can't pick just one. There's too many and
That's okay.
genres and things like that. So, but all in consideration are The Departed, Boondock Saints, Whiplash, and then because I have to include a comedy, Anchorman, of course. Just those
Nice.
are
Very
all
nice.
all timers.
All right. Favorite band.
Another one that has to be. I'm cheating. This ain't two, but my two all-time favorite bands are Thrice and Korn.
Nice. All right. Favorite adult beverage.
A whiskey sour that is made correctly with egg white. Ideally with Maker's Mark bourbon.
I am drinking an old fashioned with Maker's Mark bourbon tonight.
That is a
now
great
it's
cocktail.
lacking a couple of ingredients, but I think I did pretty good this time.
Sorry, man.
So, favorite TV show.
Of all time, it would be Breaking Bad. And as alluded
Excellent
to a little
choice.
bit earlier, currently it is Ted Lasso.
Excellent choices. I love both of those shows. Okay, so favorite defensive player. Now this is nuanced because there's two answers I need from you here.
Okay.
All time and right now.
All time. I only went with current and I was thinking. So all time. Well, I'm going to start with current, and that is Fred Warner, the man
Okay.
Fred Warner.
Yeah.
All time is probably Patrick Willis, though.
Nice. That's a solid choice. That is
I think I have to go with Patrick Willis. I wanted to say somebody from the 90s, but my more core memories are when we sucked and then when we got to the Willis era.
I gotcha. All right. And then last question. Favorite offensive player? Same thing. I need all time and right now.
That's it. All time is Jerry Rice, no question, the GOAT. And then right now, just 1 second. 1 second.
Okay. Ooh, I think we've got a jersey reveal, folks. Drum roll. George Kittle.
George Kittle, baby. George Kittle.
I love it.
Far and
This
away.
is the first time I have ever seen you in anything that's not collared, so that is awesome.
Well, I guess it is the fantasy off season now. I don't have to be as corporate. I can ease up a little bit. And this was a wonderful belated Christmas present that actually wasn't expected to arrive. It wasn't supposed to come. Then it showed up after the New Year. So sweet.
Very nice. That's awesome. Well, Merry Christmas to you.
Yes.
Thank you for coming on. It was a pleasure as usual. Before we hop off on here, people follow him on Twitter at FF Tycoon. And before I let you go, though, what are some things that you're working on? What can people expect from the boardroom off season, and anything else that you would like to plug?
So the boardroom will likely have an episode next week before probably a small hiatus here in the off season, just to probably take off through the Super Bowl, just to try and prevent some burnout, recharge the batteries. In the meantime, though, what to expect in the off season would be largely Dynasty centered content from me. That'll be really my focus: trade targets, draft strategies, rookie profiling. It'll follow the typical calendar, but I'll definitely try to get largely what I focus on is targets and who to move to maximize value before they tank, before the season starts. So it'll be a lot of trade discussion coming from me.
Awesome.
And even currently and through the end of the season, you'll be seeing a lot of NBA prop betting from me, and as well as NFL as we go through the playoffs. Eased up over the last couple of weeks on NFL just because it's been
COVID.
Disaster. So I think the playoffs will likely be a little bit more normal. At least I'm going to have a little bit more confidence in terms of trying to do wagers, so there'll be a lot of NFL and NBA prop betting just to keep that going. Keep
Nice.
fresh content going, so keep an eye out for that through not only Fantasy Collective, but Collective Bets and my account as well.
Awesome.
It'll be talked about a little
Awesome.
bit on the show too.
Yeah, cool. All right, man. Well, thanks for coming on. And as you guys know, Tycoon and myself are both founders of the Fantasy Football Collective. Make sure you like and subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Twitter at FF_collective. That is KOLLECTIV. This show will come out on audio in a few weeks on the Fantasy Nightcap, which you can find on your preferred podcasting network. We're on Apple, Spotify, Google, and the podcast app. And make sure you follow me, FF Shane B, on Twitter.
FF Shane B, no better follow.
Thank you. Cheers, y'all.